Okay, so I decided to do my history project on the nuclear weapons freeze campaign. So, by the early 1980s, the threat of nuclear war had been a constant in America for 30 years. This threat became very real and very serious at the start of Ronald Reagan's administration due to the increase of spending money on nuclear energy. They already, they'd been in the Cold War for a hot bit, but it was still just that might happen. But with Ronald Reagan coming into office, they're like, oh crap, this is for reals. So public comments made by the administration office or officials suggested that nuclear war might be waged and won. This was extremely scary for American citizens because they thought the nuclear war was becoming more of a reality with every passing day, which it was. Because of this fear, regular Americans stepped up to the plate because their lives were in danger. One of these Americans is Randall Forsberg, who decided to dedicate her life's work to educating the public about nuclear issues. So, Forsberg was the creator of the nuclear weapons freeze campaign. The freeze campaign was intended to halt the escalation towards nuclear war between the US and the Soviet Union with an agreement to halt nuclear weapon testing, creation, and usage. This grew into a widespread movement that spread throughout the whole of the United States. With nearly all peace organizations, as well as really well-known religions, professional and labor organizations supporting it. The movement developed around Forsberg's policy, which suggested moderation and non-partisanship, which means they wouldn't participate, was named the grassroots movement and was organized locally in towns all over the U.S. So activists fought to obtain ballot measures requesting a bilateral freeze of their local ballots across the nation. So they practically said, if you're not going to listen to us, we're not going to vote. So in 1982, pro-freeze resolutions were adopted by 275 city governments, 9 states, and 446 town hall gatherings, with 60% of 18 million Americans who casted ballots on the freezing policy that year supporting it. So this is unheard of. That's never really happened in American history before. And in the words of Congressman Edward Markey, this was the closest our country had ever come to national plebiscite on nuclear arms control with the pressure from, control quote. So with the pressure from millions of Americans, they were having protests, they refused to vote for a little bit. The administration finally started taking disarmament measures, and President Reagan and the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, met for bilateral nuclear arms reduction in Reykjavik, Iceland, which was kind of like a neutral area. So it wasn't in the US, it wasn't in the Soviet Union, it was kind of neutral. So in the 1980s, the nuclear freeze movement had a significant influence on the nuclear policy, but as time passed, interest died out, it wasn't really that big a deal anymore. But even now, it's super important. It gives hope and motivates people to fight for what they believe in, even if they don't think it's going to change. Because eventually, if you have enough people fighting for one thing, it will change.